Coming off the moon, the soil in the earth, breaking through the rocks, growing wild and tall till the buds begin to pop. So pack me in a bowl or roll me in a spliff, while you're breaking me down.
Hey, this is Ryan Herron from Portland, Oregon.
And hey, this is Amanda Breeze in Toronto.
We're here to talk about all the fun stuff about one of our favorite plants, cannabis. Today's episode's a fun one. We are tasting chocolate. We've got a bunch of stack of chocolate bars here, and we're going to get into it.
I am so excited about this episode. I started picking up the supplies for it a couple weeks ago, and I've just been staring at these chocolate bars in my cupboard for days, and now we finally get to eat them. So I've never done anything like this before.
Oh, really? Well, hey, this is great. I used to do this all the time when I was a chocolate maker here in Portland, just shipping in the beans and grinding them up and going through that whole step-by-step process. That was my great way of educating people about why a chocolate bar could cost something like $12. Which is a lot. None of the bars here we have today are like that bougie. They're all pretty easily available or pretty readily available, especially if you're in Canada, because Amanda was nice enough to ship me some chocolate.
Yes.
So if you're paying attention to the Instagram, we've already posted that these are the bars you should get. And if you are just tuning in, then go ahead and hit pause. Go grab yourself like a 70% bar. We've got Lint here. I've got a 95% bar, something really high in cacao, low in sugar, and anything else. Amanda sent. What did you send over?
This I sent over. It's 100% cacao stone ground chocolate from Choco Sol, and the packaging is really nice. It's all like omni-gradable. It's like this really all-around ethical company that's like all about sustainability, because like, you know, chocolate is one of those industries that has a lot of like modern day slavery and a really big footprint, ecological footprint. So this is one of my favorite brands. They make a lot of different types of bars. They have a vanilla sea salt, which is hands down one of my faves. So I haven't tried this one yet because it sounds like really intense. 100% cacao.
I promise you that it is going to be incredibly intense, especially the stone ground. The type of chocolate that I made was also stone ground, but I would grind it in a special conch for days until it was like the proper micron size, and then filter it again to make sure it was that really smooth, buttery type chocolate. But a lot of times something that's more roughly ground still has a lot of that texture of the cacao nib, which is also great. It lends a lot to it, and it adds a lot of like texture and crunch like in the mouth. So I'm most excited about that. And then I also have just an American KitKat bar, like right from the corner store. And I begged Amanda to send me a KitKat from Canada so we could compare the two.
Yes, because KitKat is like the one that all of my American friends said tastes like so much better in Canada. That's like a standout generic cheapo chocolate bar, but they always say like Canadian KitKats are like a million times better. So I don't know. You're the expert.
We'll see. KitKat in Canada and most of the rest of the world is made by Nestle. And Nestle is willing to take more risks too with flavor. And so they always have the really cool limited edition, you know, sea salt, caramel cone flavors or whatever. Finally, Hershey's, who runs KitKat here in the United States, is starting to experiment and do more things like birthday cake, which I actually thought was pretty good. So, hey, even if you don't want to go and spend between $3 and $8 on a chocolate bar from Lindt, go grab a KitKat and join us. I'm gonna talk you through how people in the industry taste chocolate, and then hopefully we can kind of dig in and compare notes and show you how like tasting is such a personal thing. I promise you, Amanda and I might have some overlap, and who knows, we might just be saying vastly different things.
I'm legit. So like, I can't even wipe this smile off my face. Like, I'm just really excited to do this. And I pulled a bit of a Ryan the other day and ate like a good portion of one of them, but like left a few bites for the podcast here because
My heart. That's the way to do it.
I can help myself.
So we always want to start kind of lighter to darker so we don't kind of blow out our palate.
Oh.
Make sure you have some water or some neutral soda water. That's what I really like nearby to also cleanse your palate. And okay, we record all of these episodes video wise, and they're still not available anywhere but like my computer. So I have to like describe what I'm doing here, but this is the best way to crack a bar of chocolate. It's a really good move. You show up to a dinner party or whatever with some like spendy $12 bar of chocolate, and everyone's like, ooh, okay, I'd like to try that. And so you automatically get everyone paying attention to what you're doing. You can walk them through this. This is like a magic trick you can do from now on. Okay. Just grab the bar. Okay. Unwrap it. So it's just in the foil. Almost everything, especially nicer bars, come in foil these days. Sometimes they're like wrapped in like a thin plastic. And then just with your thumbs, crack it right down the center. And you should hear like a really nice crispy snap, because the way it's tempered means everything is nice and crystallized, and it's going to shatter instead of like break.
Whoa.
Do that down the center, and then once again do it on the like left side. Turn the bar horizontally, crack it on the left side, crack it on the right side. So now this whole bar is broken into bite-sized pieces, and I didn't have to touch it with my hands.
Wow.
Oh, all right. So I've got the Lint 70 here, and I think if you're joining us, grab whatever you have nearby or grab your Lint 70 and let's get started.
Okay, so I did not get a Lint 70 because I went to the store and it was $8. And I was like, absolutely not paying $8 for a freaking Lint. So I got the Lint dark chocolate balls because they were Christmas themed and they were only 25 cents for the whole bag.
That's awesome. That's great. There's nothing stopping you from rocking this.
Okay.
I'm wondering if on your packaging, does it say anywhere what the cocoa content is?
Let's see. Not that I'm seeing on the fly. I did just rip it open like a wild animal.
That's right.
Though.
If it says dark, at least in the United States, I think it has to be at least 55%. So Canada, I promise you, is at least as strict, if not more strict.
Okay, so yeah, dark chocolate, right?
Yeah, you're in good shape. So yeah, you want to check to make sure it has that ringing snap. That means it's been tempered properly. Let's see. Really loud, kind of explosive, and you can kind of feel it pop in your hand.
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't hear anything, but I'll trust you on that one.
You know what? You've got a ball. It's not the most shape conducive for snapping and popping. I trust. You can also tell if your chocolate has a kind of a fuzzy white, almost looks like mold on the outside. That's called bloom, and that means that it's probably gone through some temper changes, which might have fucked with the temper. So if you don't have that, it's a pretty good sign your chocolate's good.
Okay.
All right. So use just your thumb and rub it. Give it a little rub. What you want to do is warm up the surface of that chocolate with your body heat. Boom. All of those volatiles are popping. They're rising off the chocolate. They're right there ready for you to sniff up. So go ahead and give your chocolate like a little rub and a little sniff. And that's going to also prime your palate for some of those flavors and notes and aromas to get into.
My mouth is watering. Yeah.
I've got fig here already. I'm getting maybe some slight like leather, getting some butteriness. Any of those?
Okay, I'm just smelling chocolate, but I don't know. I've never really smelled chocolate, so I feel like I have to do a couple bars to hone in on it.
You know what? That's all right, because the perfect thing is we all have this like nostalgic touch point for chocolate, which is fine. It's like it's this broad umbrella, and that's why when you have tobacco or coffee, you can say, oh, this has like a chocolate note to it, and everyone knows what that is. So breaking it down even further is a lot to deal with, and let's just see what we can find. One thing that's going to really help us, and then also annoy me later when I'm editing this, is that we're going to let this melt on our tongue for about 60 seconds. And that whole time, just be kind of like surveying and appreciating like what's happening in our mouths. And I'm going to just edit that out. So if you are melting chocolate in your mouth and thinking about it, go ahead and hit pause We're going to enjoy this, and then we'll come back in 1 minute and talk about it.
Okay, as a chocolate newbie, what should I, oh, it's too late here. It's in your mouth.
We don't have to be silent, but I know how much people on the internet hate mouth noises, so we'll avoid that if possible.
Okay. Well.
So, hey, what was that like? The first time letting that whole thing, I know it seems like kind of annoying to have to be that patient with a piece of chocolate, but it totally changes. You get a lot out of it. I always tell people to smell it like a cat, which is something we've talked about in the past, which is kind of where you like open the size of your mouth and just kind of like let that air in and kind of hit both your, hit your whole palate.
Wait, that's what I was wondering, like, what should I be looking for? But blindly, without knowing, I did notice waves of flavors coming through. That was kind of unexpected.
As it heats up to your body heat, different volatiles are released. And so it's like you're kind of getting your own, what is it? The GC gas
GCX, GGC, yeah, yeah.
It's like a GC in the lab, right? Where it's breaking down the different volatiles one by one and separating those out. Now, you get a much rougher version of that because it's your mouth, but hey, that's how we taste things. So that's a really, I don't want to say unique approach, but that's the approach that you would take when you're really trying to decide what a chocolate bar tastes like and what notes you're getting. So yeah, okay, while that was melting, I felt like I got dried cherry. I finished with like spices like cinnamon, more of that leather. I feel like this has just got a nice fig quality to it. What are you experiencing?
Okay, now I don't have a refined palate, but I did feel like a fruitiness in the beginning, like an unexpected one. You mentioned fig and cherry. I think I was catching some hints of that.
Cool.
And it was, for a dark chocolate, it was surprisingly milkier, but I think it's also because I had the chocolate balls. So they tend to be a little like goopier on the inside. It was, yeah, I felt like surprisingly milky. So, but definitely fruit with a hint of maybe like a bitter, but like just a touch of it, a little touch, like a 2%, like really light, almost not noticeable.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna just keep heading into bitter territory with the way these increase in their cocoa percentage. And I think 70 for myself is a really good sweet spot, because what is 70% is how much cocoa is in the bar. So what is the other 30%? Almost all of it is always sugar.
Okay.
So when you see 70%, you just know 30% of that is sugar, which is fine. That's great. It helps with the tempering. It adds that like perfect balance of sweetness, I feel. Now you might feel like things are more perfectly balanced at like a 55% or wherever your sweet spot is. And that's why there's so many offerings for chocolate when you go into the store. Some people love 50, some people love 75. Fewer people like these like 95 and 99s where we're going, but that's fine because they're really unique. In a lot of ways, you're getting more bang for your buck if you're using this in some kind of like hot chocolate or something like that. Like you can just add your own sugar at home, or honey or agave or whatever kind of sweetener you like if you don't like something that sweet. Yeah.
Okay, so like I've seen some of these like Netflix chocolatier shows, but like what exactly is tempering? Is that like setting something to be a solid?
Yeah, it's chocolate is really interesting in the way it has these crystallization properties. So chocolate itself can form these different types of crystals as it's heated and melted. The easiest way to imagine this is just butter, right? If you melt butter because you've been touching it with a hot corn cob, it's not going to melt. It's not going to solidify at room temperature into that nice, beautiful color. It's going to be all separated and oily and whatever. It's going to be kind of gnarly. Chocolate does the same thing when it's melted. So like wax, like chocolate, like butter, if you run it through this very specific parabola of temperatures, then it will heat up. All of those crystals in the chocolate will melt out. And then as you cool it down, those crystals will reform. And if you cool it down in a very specific way, they'll reform in a way where they're all lined up in this beautiful temper. So that's why you get this solid piece of chocolate that rings and snaps when you bust into it, which is very satisfying. And that's also what is really great in your mouth, because if you have untempered chocolate, it tastes a little bit like clay, or it has the texture of clay where it's like kind of clumpy and falling apart. Anytime you've like broken an emulsion, that's kind of what it is in your mouth. It's not as enjoyable.
Okay, kind of like a dollar store chocolate.
Yeah, yeah. If you bite the ear off an Easter bunny, like I promise you, it's going to be waxy and not good.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is they can add things like wax to the cheaper ends of chocolate. So be aware of anything that says chocolatier, with a chocolatey coating. That's not real chocolate. Instead of using cocoa butter or whatever, they probably use palm oil.
Oh my God, no.
Yeah, so it's one of the clever ways. I think Kind Bar still says chocolate on their bars, and it's not real chocolate. It's made with palm oil or whatever. People are still mad about it. I don't know if they're paying fines or if no one cares, but it's one of those that people in the chocolate industry are like, how does Kind get away with calling this? It's not even real chocolate.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
All right. So shall we do the gratitude bar?
Okay, are we gonna jump to that one? That one's 100%. Is that okay?
Let's do the KitKats. Why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we do the Canadian one first so I can try the same thing as you?
Yes, and then so I can get into the American one and be like, well, it's not that great.
Yeah, you are officially going to settle the debate on which Kit Kat bar is better, ending the war between our two countries.
I mean, already the Canadian one says 100% sustainably sourced cocoa. Mine doesn't say that anywhere on it. The Canadian Kit Kat has 20 more calories at 230 for the whole bar. So in my mind, it's probably going to be better. What is that? Yeah, no, per one bar. We got this. And it's in this like sleek metallic wrapper, and mine is not.
What's yours in?
This kind of matte red. Here, you can.
Ew, look at this, so shiny.
For those on the Patreon feed, you can compare the two. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
All right, so let's crack into these.
Are we just gonna eat the chocolate around the outside?
Oh no, let's enjoy the whole thing.
Okay. With the 60 seconds.
Yeah, let's take a big chunk off of it. Take a little break. When you feel like yours is like gone and enjoyed, you give me a thumbs up, and we'll get back to chatting. I'm gonna give it the little finger rub first, though. I'm gonna prime my Kit Kat.
I think it smells really good.
It does. It's like brown butter, sweet sugar.
Much better than the Lindt. I like that.
It's like a chocolate candle. Like it almost has like elevated chocolate aromas. Milky as well. Yeah.
Very milky.
Cheers.
Cheers. Wow, that's very different.
Oh yeah, this is even different for me than what I'm used to.
I'm getting something, but I can't put my finger on it.
This is great. I don't know if have you ever had a Milka bar?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I remember getting these in Europe 20 years ago. I'm not sure if they're still a thing anymore, but it was this really dairy forward, soft chocolate milk, like chocolate bar. That's totally what this reminds me of. It's got like insane sweet milk flavors, like toasted milk, toasted sugar. It's got an ice cream vibe. Which I was really surprised. I don't believe the American has the same style. So I'm going to try one of those real quick to compare. And And yeah, tell me what you're experiencing. And hey, one of the things I would always say when I would go to like a wine tasting and get out a chocolate bar, right? So it's all of these people who are used to tasting wine, and I'm like, haha, let me take you over to the chocolate side. Is that your perception is like never wrong, even if you haven't tasted 1,000 chocolate bars like I have and worked out all of the like fig and anise notes. Anything you say, we have to agree with. It's your personal experience, you know?
Well, I feel like I'm having a moment where I forgot all of the words that I ever knew in my entire life.
Oh, hey, good food will do that for you, right?
Speaking English. Yeah, I guess I was getting like, I mean, it's really tough because I wouldn't say that I eat chocolate a lot, but like if I do want a chocolate bar, I usually go for the Kit Kat. That's kind of like my go-to these days. So it's like really interesting just shoving it in your mouth and enjoying the sweetness versus like really trying to be like, what is outside of what I normally taste in a very specific way, which I guess is the idea of this challenge here. It's like, it's the same with weed, it's the same with wine, it's the same with anything that you're consuming on a daily basis. Like you have to try to pick out those flavor notes.
Right. And I drink espresso every day. I try and work on my computer somewhere where I can get an espresso to have my little break. And that's something that I still struggle with to give really good quality flavor notes with. And that's mostly because like I think about it, I don't write it down. I'm not trying to get better at it. I'm not trying to be the espresso tasting guy. I'm just trying to enjoy it. So I think that there is this sort of like base level of enjoyment where you don't have to like be picking it apart. And a Kit Kat is perfect for that. For our purposes, it's great because I can compare this American Kit Kat, which smells like just sugar and just a wafer. Like I haven't even been into this yet, and it just smells like a wafer cookie. So I think that's really interesting. I wasn't totally expecting the chocolate to take a back seat to the cookie that's inside it, but that's absolutely what is going on here.
Yeah, because I think the Canadian one is very chocolate forward. Although it does have a cookie flavor, the aroma is very chocolate forward.
I'll know here in a second, but I also feel like the cookie in the Canadian version is a little bit lighter.
Ooh.
Yeah. The American one has thicker chocolate and it's a lot crunchier.
What do you think about the sweetness?
I think ultimately, if we looked at it, they probably have the similar sweetness levels. The American one, even though it's less caloric, tastes sweeter, but they're right in the same level. I think they're going for that same exact like hit of sugar. The American one has like a dull fruitiness that the Canadian one instead has like all milk and toasted milk, and like I said, that more ice creamy vibe.
I'm definitely tasting like this toasted flavor. I'm definitely getting that.
I would say even hazelnut on the Canadian one.
Well, what I was wondering is like, when it comes to weed, like I know what sort of qualities to look for. The smell, obviously, we both know about kind of smells we're looking for. We both know about aesthetically, like we look at the trichomes, what is the ripeness, what is whatever, but like is there like a couple of things to think about or some categories to consider for like an amateur taster? Like, am I trying to, like what is the trichome health and density equivalent to like a chocolate bar?
I mean, hey, that's the perfect thing to talk about, right? It comes down to the couple of things I said before, right? Has it been light struck or heat struck? Does it have that white bloom to it? First sign that things are not going well. Does it have that resounding snap, crack, pop that we talked about? That means it's been tempered well and it's going to melt nicely in your mouth. It's always great to find small producers that talk about where they get their product from, and if there's a farm listed on it on the bar, then you're in good shape. So in that way, single estate is always good to see, or specifically from like a specific lot. Those are always nice. I think even just finding like a company and spending around that $5 mark, you're automatically going to get better chocolate than you would just like sub $5. And I would say like even these Lindt bars today I got them from the grocery store. They were each less than $5 for me, and they both seem to be in good shape. So it's not hard to get good chocolate, but it's just not hard to get bad chocolate as well.
And does like chocolate have like terroir? Like if you're looking at an estate or a region, I spent like a little bit of time in Mexico, you know, where they do like mole and like Oaxaca, I think it is that has is it the Oaxaca that had the chocolate? But I went to like the cacao museum and got to try like some local chocolate. So I know they're really known for their chocolate flavor. Was that like a tourist trap or is that a real thing?
No, you're totally right. And there's also different varieties of chocolate. So there's like the Criollo variety, which has even in that different varieties of chocolate. So you can go all the way from some like more commodity beans all the way down to like a Porcelana Criollo, which is like a albino white bean in this really like prize variety. But most of the chocolate we get is Trinitario or Forastero. So these are, you know, equatorial strains of chocolate. I can't pronounce them all. All likely originating in Africa. The Criollo was discovered here in Central America, likely also from African stock. So if they're throwing around like the variety of bean it is, you're probably already in good company.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a bean labeled, but also maybe I've never really looked. Okay, I'm looking at the Choco Sol right now. So this is our 100% cacao.
Yes, I'm getting this out as well. I've got my piece.
I'm gonna try, this is my first bar, so I'm gonna try your cracking technique.
Oh,
That snapped.
this is bringing me back. This smells like a damn cacao nib, which is like maybe you'll get them in smoothies sometimes or top to like an acai bowl. They have no sugar. It's just a little bean. So you take what is essentially like a paper shell pecan, like a very thin hulled fruit, and then roast that after you ferment it, crack that, and then blow away all that shell. And then what's left is like a little bit of what looks like almost like a walnut. And it's got this really, typically in the varieties I was going for, like fruity expression that you could just smell on it, but without any sweetness at all. And that's exactly what this smells like.
Okay, so my bar cracked perfectly. It had no bloom. So these are both really good signs. It smells, compared to the other two, like there's a more of a diversity of aromatics coming through. Like I'm actually getting a lot of layers. It definitely smells like a cacao nib. I've eaten the nibs in the past. And to me, like it's making me think of coffee, like this deep.
Yeah, I would say that this smells like really high-end coffee. Like when you get a bag and somebody gave it to you and left a price tag on, and you're like, oh, you spent this much on a bag of coffee, and you open it and you just get all of those fruity volatiles and everything's just flying in all directions. Super complex. I think one or two episodes ago, we were talking about how these like more complex and interesting volatiles are the exact reason why wines are more expensive and more valued. So right there, we've got a really nice bar in our hands.
It's interesting because unlike the other two, which were very like the Kit Kat to me was very like milky sweetness. This is like, I don't even know what words to use. It's bitter.
The Kit Kat is this at some point with all of that sweetness added, with all of that milk added, with all of those different things on top of it. So this is like really the pure expression of like what is supposed to make a Kit Kat so good, the chocolate.
It's really base note heavy. I will say that, like I'm getting it a lot in like the tip of my nose sensation.
And this brings me back to those really sweet erasers we used to get. A different texture eraser. It wasn't like the thing on the end of a number two.
And it's not really melting in my fingers too much. Is that another thing we're looking for, like the meltiness?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's like a good indicator of quality because poor chocolate is more likely to have like a good melt on it.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
but yeah, I think that's more to the fact that this has like no sugar in it. It's just, this is basically like a nut bar at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. The other two melted very quickly.
I will also say that tempering 100% bar is incredibly difficult. And tempering chocolate is probably the reason I'm no longer in that industry because it would work out so well. I would have everything great. I would check the temperature of everything 6 times and I would come back and it would not be perfect. And I would have to just start over again. All right. I am going to pop this one in.
Okay.
I can already tell it's going to be fun and intense. It's not melting.
It's melting a little bit. It's so bitter.
Mm-hmm. It's like hot with bitterness.
Almost like am I getting a burnt flavor?
I think you can absolutely taste the roast.
Oh, the roast. Yes.
There is some sweetness provided by those like starches that have converted in the fermentation of the actual chocolate. So it's not lacking sweetness, but it's very much like a cup of espresso in the way that it's like, oh, it's going to hit you with that bitterness.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't really like that one.
100% is intense for anyone. This was me standing over the roaster, tasting the nibs like every 15 seconds to see like where they're at. And to be honest with you, that is where I really honed my entire palate, was just standing there being like, okay, these nibs cost me everything. And if I don't turn them into chocolate, I'm broke. And so I want this chocolate to be as good as possible. And just standing over there and tasting it from like 15 seconds ago to 15 seconds now. How much has that roasting changed it?
Wow.
Going, am I going to fuck it up or is it going to get slightly improved? One thing that this is lacking, which is great, is in that process, you're losing a lot of like built up acetic acid. So it has like a vinegary funk to it that is also flashing off the whole time you're roasting. So thankfully that's not here. That's not present on these. But yeah, it tastes like a massive cacao because it literally is one, right?
Wow. And I did notice flavor changing as I was moving through it. It really gets in your mouth. This like,
Oh yeah, it's like peanut butter. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, definitely tasting the roast factor.
I get sour. I get like nut shell, like a peanut shell.
Oh, yes, yes. I was almost getting kind of like this puckeriness too, like that sort of hibiscus pucker, or like, when you're
Oh,
drinking tea and your mouth starts puckering. I can't remember what that chemical is.
yeah. Well, even just like the acid level, right? You can feel how much saliva your mouth is producing, and that tells you how high the acid is, right? And if you're paying attention to that, you can eventually be like, oh, this is really high acid wine because of how much spit is in my mouth, which is crazy, but hey, it's a factor, so let's pay attention to it.
Well, we started with really milky stuff that was like super sweet. So that was a bit of like a unexpected black. I mean, it was 100%. I knew it was gonna be weird, but like,
Have to go there. You got to hit those extremes to be like, okay, now I know what this would be like if it were more aggressively roasted and if a little bit of a rougher texture, right? And if we removed any of that sugar at all, and we're just left with the natural sweetness of the cacao, which is not very.
which you can really taste. Like, I feel like I really got a taste of the cacao. I think the roasting of it to me felt right. Like, I wouldn't want any more roasted flavor from that. That felt like my maximum roast level.
Yeah. Yeah. I would probably put that like even a little under what I would call Starbucks coffee. You know how every cup of Starbucks has just been they've roasted the shit out of it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's this baseline roast, and it's the way that they can take all this different commodity coffee and make it taste homogenous. That's fine. I drink Starbucks every now and then. So to me, this was not like roasted to oblivion, but it did have that, like you said, you could almost taste like a char to it.
I was definitely getting the full bodied roast flavor. for sure.
I think that you could grate some of that over vanilla ice cream, and it would be an insane play on both that, like, some really nice like French vanilla bean or whatever, where you're getting that sour cacao, but there's so much like sweetness and milkiness and vanilla there to cut through it that you're getting everything.
Yeah, like I mean, normally I go around like the 80% cacao. That's sort of my thing. 75, 80% is typically what I go for. So like, what do people really even use 100% for? Like, why would someone eat this?
Well, I'll be real with you. It's often people who are avoiding sugar.
Okay.
Yeah. So someone who really doesn't want any sugar in their diet for whatever reason will often reach for something that's like 100%. And it's pretty bomb in cooking too. I think, melting a couple of those in some brownies where you're also adding sugar, you're going to have an insane, like, damn, this thing tastes like the rainforest brownies. So that's kind of how I would utilize something like that. It is awesome though to just lay out 4 or 5 different kinds of chocolate, knowing that last one is like the smokiest scotch in the bar. Like, this is going to wreck your palate, but you should try it because it is the most extreme.
Okay, I went back in for another bite and it's giving me like bark, almost like I'm getting like twigs, trees. Like it's just like it's really intense.
Right? It tastes like the rainforest. Seriously.
Yeah.
It does. And a lot of the stuff we're saying is like it's not so pleasant because it's not. It's not. But
It's not.
it, it is like you're adding to your whole repertoire by getting into this. And I promise you, this thing is going to sit up in your cabinet for a couple of weeks. And then you're going to say, oh, damn, I've got this oat milk. And I think I'm going to melt this into it and add a sweetener of my choice and really enjoy it that way too. And have a whole other experience.
So I really like raw cacao nibs.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever tried the roasted ones. Like, do people ever use just the raw ones, or you like have to roast them to make a chocolate bar?
You don't have to roast them. There are even some bars that are made with raw cacao nibs. I do think that there's likely some issues you can have with like microbial issues with something like that, where it could make you sick. I didn't offer a raw product for that reason, but I also have not heard of any experiences where somebody who did said, "Oh no, I made a dozen customers sick" or something like that. So it's likely something that's not really an issue.
Huh.
I've got this 95% lint here I'm going to get into. It does feel somewhere between the two, but man, talk about roast. I mean, this thing is pretty roasty.
Okay, well, you're exploring that. I got the Theo bar. This one's 55%. It does have bloom.
I see that. Yeah. I
Have
didn't
bloom.
want to call that out.
Oh, well, hey. And it is one of their peanut butter cups because it was on sale. I'm gonna try it. I went for all the discount chocolate today.
Hey, if you're at home and you're doing this chocolate tasting with us, congrats to you, by the way. That's a killer way to kill a Sunday morning or whatever. I hope you rolled a spliff beforehand to let your mind really be like, oh, this one tastes like cartoons.
Yeah, this is definitely like a smoke a bowl before you eat episode. Brian smoked a bowl before we started.
I so rarely smoke a bowl. I just did not want to go out to my car and get my kit. I'm like, oh, well, I have this bud here at the bottom of the jar and this. I had to pregame.
So the peanut butter is definitely influencing. I feel like it leached into the chocolate. I'm trying to eat the outside, but I kind of I felt the same about the KitKat. Like I was getting a lot of cookie flavors, even though I was just trying to eat the outside of it and not the cookie. So is that pretty standard? Like the flavor leaching into the outer shell?
Yeah, I think no matter what, like the flavors are going to intermingle. especially when they're just like manufactured together and packed. And then even this has had some like temperature issues you can see. I'm sure I've mentioned this because it's like one of my fun like back pocket facts. Years ago, Hershey started packing their Reese's peanut butter cups differently because they noticed that their packaging, which was slightly porous, was making the peanut butter go rancid a lot faster. And people did not like the new unoxidized peanut butter. They were like, nope, go back. We actually like it when it gets a little chalky and a little of those like more animalic, oily flavors to it. So, I mean, hey.
That's interesting. It was like the nostalgia of the flavor that influenced the preference, even though it wasn't a quality product.
Yeah. And somehow like sometimes flaws can be the thing that people like about your stuff. I mean, why not? Okay, this 95% is pretty unremarkable. I'm gonna put it away because I have 10 other better options here.
Okay, I'm kind of feeling the same too. I don't know if I blew my palate on the 100%, but I'm like, everything's just tasting. I mean, maybe I'm just discovering KitKat's my true favorite. I have an unrefined palate for chocolate, clearly.
Well, the good thing is you should eat all the Kit Kats you want because why not? Let's enjoy things. And then the next time you have an excuse to buy a spendy bar, like your buddy in America is begging you to send him one, buy one for yourself that is something that looks very has all the earmarks of something good, right? Maybe it calls out the farmer or the region, maybe it calls out the kind of bean that they're used. It especially says like what percentage of cocoa it has. You can flip it over. Anything other than cocoa, sugar, cocoa butter, and like maybe soy lecithin, stay away from it. Inclusions are fine. Get the salt one, get the almondy one, you know. I think anytime you add one of those like truffly pastes in the middle of something, it's going to just be a little bit more difficult to taste the actual chocolate, but that's fine. And bring that over to whoever's house and break it up, and then have everyone throw their opinion down on what they thought about it.
Wow. And there is like a chocolate tasting wheel. Is there not? I'm just curious because like I feel like being new to the chocolate tasting, it would be nice to have something to ground my observations into. It's sort of like what we talked about with smell, where it's like sometimes it's really hard to be like, that's the smell that I'm smelling.
Go ahead and hit the episode description where I am going to drop the Calibut Consumer Chocolate Sensory Wheel. And I have never seen this before. It came out in 2018 after Ren Chocolate was already wrapped up. But I have to say that this is a fantastic resource for tasting chocolate. And it has everything from, it has the aroma, mouthfeel, the taste. In the aroma area, we've even got vegetal, earthy, and herbs. And then in earthy, we've got olive, mushroom, tobacco, rum, whiskey, woody, smoked wood. So some really specific sensory notes there to hit. And if you're just getting into this and you want to taste chocolate and have like a nice place to start, go ahead and hit that link.
Cool. That's exciting. We're advancing all of the skills on this podcast.
Yeah. And hey, if you are an expert or fashion yourself as an expert in tobacco or some kind of spirits like scotch or whiskey or perfume, and you feel like, hey, these are my people, I'd love to talk them through something, like, of course, we would love that too. Anything to kind of expand the repertoire and palette, we would love that kind of stuff.
I'm looking at this now too. That's very exciting.
Yeah, tell us what jumps out to you. It's a really nice tool.
I would say like one of the flavors I'm seeing, I might be on a different one, but dried leaves is one of the flavor options on this one. And I would say that actually the Theo cacao was giving me a bit of a dried leaves vibe.
Sure.
For sure. And again, maybe slightly influenced by the peanut butter. I'm going in for another bite here.
Yeah. Hey, I wouldn't even say influence. Like you read the thing and then it hit. And chocolate and peanut butter, such a classic combo. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I
Like,
should have sent you some Canadian Reese's too.
the Kit Kat was perfect. A year from now, if we're still doing this, you'll have to send me the the Reese's and gosh, I don't know what else. That would be good. Maybe a Twix.
I'm
You have
gonna
Twix?
practice. Yeah, I'm gonna have to practice my chocolate skills. This is like my intro to chocolate tasting. Although in the pack, I did also send the Smarties, which I always think is funny. Because in the US, your Smarties are those little chalk powdery
Yeah, true,
candies.
truly one of the worst candies there ever has been. Yes.
Yes. Here we call those rockets.
Okay. All right. So you still have a like crispy classic Necco wafer equivalent.
Yeah. Yeah. We have the same thing. It's just called rockets. So that's why I threw those in the mix for your kiddo, because I was like, oh, I wonder if they've ever tried the real Smarties chocolates.
Yeah.
Because that's one that I remember not being able to find. The other thing I remember very vividly is having a craving for freezies when I was in the States. Do you know what freezies are?
No, what is that?
Because, and this took me a month to figure out, Oregon calls them otter pops.
Ah, yes. Now I know exactly what you're talking about.
We call them freezies. So imagine me going to every single Winco and Fred Meyer's. Like I went to all the shops and I'm like, I'm looking for freezies. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. And finally, down the line, somebody is like, oh, you mean otter pops?
Yes, yes. And you found them. And a plastic sleeve full of sugar juice, I think is
I was trying to share the foods of my people with my American friends, because in Montreal they sell 40s of beer at 10.1% alcohol, so 10% 40s, and you drink it down to the label like a screwdriver. Or what are they called? A brass monkey. I haven't been drinking in a while, so I'm out of the loop. But you drink it down to the label, and then you put two jumbo freezies, aka Otter Pops, in, and you drink it, and it's like a summer bevy
I
when you're
do
in
not hate
Montreal.
this. I think that's a pretty great thing that I have not discovered yet. So,
Yes, any color freezies except red and purple are amazing.
if I can put tahine on it, I'll get a lime
Oh,
one and I'll put that in a big Modelo or something and then top it with a bunch of spicy lime stuff. Oh, summer, where are you?
that's the hot drink of the summer.
I did see a lot of things like what was it, like the spaghetti that were big this last summer that was basically like take a high life, drink the neck, and then add Amaro to it. So if people are trying to get like slightly highbrow, lowbrow, then why not go ahead and let those otter pops do the heavy lifting for you?
Yeah, pretty much in the nastiest 40s on earth, 10.1%. Yeah, it was a time and a place. But yeah, I tried to bring it to Oregon. Clearly it didn't take off because you haven't heard of that drink yet. But
Right? Yeah, yeah, exactly. Maybe it's just your crew. That's the problem. It's like a good magic trick. If you blow everybody's mind, they can't tell anybody else about it because where do you even start?
I almost felt like it was sort of like the Blue Dream in California with the salty air. Like they didn't taste as good because you weren't smelling like Montreal city aromatics to go with it. Like you need the flavor of the city to really bring out the 40s and the freezy flavor. So it could just be that fresh air didn't quite mingle with the flavors.
Yeah, it's a New York bagel, right? Like even if you ship the water over here and make the bagel in California, I don't know, the sesame seeds don't stick.
Regional. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a regional flavor for sure.
Um,
Well, thanks so much for talking me through chocolate tasting, Ryan. I'm like jazzed on chocolate right now.
this is a good refresher. Like I said, I was a little nervous revisiting this because it's not something I've done in a long time. But the good news that I have learned is that if you have a bunch of people around a table, you get out a bunch of things that they can eat and smell and poke at and talk about, you're good. You're solid, right? And I hope we did that today and gave everyone like a little more knowledge and not too many like mouth noises.
Yeah.
Um, Cool. So tell your friends about this. Go give us 5 stars if you stuck around this long. It's definitely worth the 5 stars. You can find me at the Loud 100 on Instagram, Amanda.
I'm at emerald.temple.living, and I would love to hear other people's stoner snack chocolate suggestions now that we're all chocolate experts, so we can continue to expand the palette.
Yes, if you have a bar you like, a company you like, if you just like eating KitKats in your underwear, like just let us know. It's fun. It's good. Also, the podcast, go give us a follow if you're not already at the.smoking.spot. I think that's everything this week. Stick around. Tune in next week for more.
Sounds good. See ya.
All right. Talk soon, everyone.
Said no matter what kind of pain and anguish life may bring you, oh, smoke it up, hold it down, and don't ever stop. Well, you can always find your smoking spot. Yeah, you can always find your smoking spot.